I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Good morning.
It's time to wake up.
This is Snowman in the Morning on the Arena Sports Network.
Did you not get the memo? Let's get busy!
Have you ever tried to do a show in the midst of a thunderstorm? Well, storm's over. Good morning! Oh, man. The power went out here 3 different times. 3 different times. Welcome to Snowman in the Morning. We are presented by Sowers Ford of Michigan City. Visit them online at sowersauto.com. We got a lot to get to because I have a special guest coming on at about 5 after the hour, and that's the reason I'm bringing this man on for his morning wrap right now. And all I got to say is 2 words. Good morning, Rusty.
Morning, Brian. I'm glad that you powered yourself up this morning.
What you got?
Well, wait a minute. We've been powered up too much with all this Ray Rice stuff.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
I mean, it's overburdened. It's too much. And all I got to say is I think, just remember Kobe Bryant's situation.
Oh, my God.
This is the same thing, if not more.
Yeah.
Due process. That's what they need to do in this situation. But good morning, Brian, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday, Rusty's Morning Rant, presented by Woodforest Bank, the official bank of the Arena Sports Network. And the Ray Rice saga continues.
Oh, God.
On 2 things from yesterday, which I'm sure you're going to get into a little bit here today.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to talk about the fact that his wife, girlfriend at the time, has come out, defended him in every which way that's possible. Also, the NFL has said that they never saw the video when it was originally put out yesterday or making Monday, by TMZ.
Okay.
They never saw anything until that time. It was never released.
All right, move on, please.
That's the question, and that's something that's going to be asked down the road. Of course, Ray Rice has lost endorsements, including from Nike. They've also taken him out of the EA Sports game, at least at this point.
Yep.
Let's see where this goes over the next coming days, but we do know that he will not be with the Baltimore Ravens because they said that his contract was terminated, and the NFL has suspended him indefinitely. Over to the Bears, they need help in a big way. Key positions.
Mm-hmm.
They made the moves on an off day on Tuesday. Bears signed offensive lineman Ebert Britton to a 1-year contract, added receiver Greg Ford to the practice squad. They also terminated the contract to veteran receiver returner Michael Spurlock and said goodbye to Roy Phillips. It's also concerned about the upcoming availability of Roberto Garza and left guard Matt Slauson. Both suffered ankle injuries in their opener against the Bills. Both Garza, Slauson have high ankle sprains. A significant time to get those healed up. So there's a chance that both of them could miss time. One is going to be coming in back for the game in San Francisco, probably not, which is coming up on Sunday evening. Baseball Cubs made it 5 straight losses. They lost to the Blue Jays 9-2 last night in Toronto. Mark Burley, former White Sox pitcher, picked up the win. Neil Ramirez suffered the loss. Jorge Soler and Wellington Castillo knocked in the Cubs' runs. Cubs take out the Blue Jays again this evening. Kyle Hendricks is against Drew Hutchinson. White Sox also fell to the A's 11-2 at U.S. Field. John Danks had a rough outing, and the bats were silent once again. Sox host the A's, and that'll be this evening. One more time, Chris Bassett gets the nod against former Cubs pitcher Jeff Samardzija. WNBA Finals, Chicago Sky outclassed for a second straight game, lost to Mercury 97-68 in Phoenix. Mercury had a 22-8 run in the second quarter, but 51-36 at halftime. Elena Deladon led the Sky with 22 points. Sky are now down 2-0 in the best of 5 series. Game 3 coming up here in Chicago Friday evening at the UIC Pavilion, a must-win situation for the Sky.
Big time must-win.
World Cup of basketball in Spain, USA dominated once again in the quarterfinals, 119-76 in a rout over Slovenia. Bulls guard Derrick Rose came off the bench, scored 12 points. Klay Thompson led the way with 20. USA moves into the semifinals to play Lithuania tomorrow. Bulls are talking with veteran guard Ray Allen to a possible free agent signing.
Oh, would that be
Fire
something?
lost last year's MVP, Mike T, for the rest of the season because of season-ending hip surgery, and he'll be out for 6 to 8 months. And I said, Ryan, how often does a baseball player win the Player of the Year award twice in minor leagues? Chris Bryant has done that with a combined 43 home runs in both AA and AAA this year.
Wow.
Batted .325, drove in 110 runs, but we won't see him until next spring in the Cubs roster. Russ Silver for the Arena Sports Network, and don't forget to visit Woodforest Bank at woodforest.com for more information.
Good stuff. Thank you, Rusty. Appreciate it.
All right, have a good day, and stay dry.
I will try. That is Rusty Silver for Rusty's Morning Wrap, and as you heard, it's presented by Woodforest Bank, and that's the official bank of the Arena Sports Network. And now I'm going to... Are we going to take a pause? No, we're going to stay here. We're gonna stay here. I promised a special guest is going to ride shotgun with me, and we're going to try to get him on the line right now, so we are going to pause. All right, we are going to pause. My producer's telling me to take a quick break, so we're going to do that. We'll be back in less than 2 minutes. I'll have a very special guest on the Buffalo Wild Wings hotline with... Actually, no, we're going to stay here. We're going to stay here, and he's on right now. Okay. Well, I have been wanting to get this man on for a while, but unfortunately schedules always got in the way. But I have him on the Buffalo Wild Wings hotline right now. He is the editor of Sports Parade Magazine. He does a terrific podcast of which I am a faithful listener, and there are a couple of subjects that he brought up that we're going to discuss this morning. And as he is introduced, he is the man with the Nolans accent, and he gives it to you straight with no chaser. I love listening to this man. He's on the hotline with me right now. Mark Clark joins me this morning. Good morning.
No, man, how you doing? I'm glad to be here. It's an honor, man.
Man,
it's an honor.
It's an honor to have you on, my friend. It is an honor to have you on. And as I said, he does a terrific podcast. I love listening to him because, like me and the few others that actually have the nerve, he gives it to you, as he says on his show, straight with no chaser. So let's get into this. First of all, I'm not going to talk the Ray Rice situation. We're going to save that for later. I want to talk about some game situations. And the first one that I want to bring up involves your beloved New Orleans Saints, who let Atlanta get away again. I don't like that, man.
I don't like it either. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was a pitiful performance. And quite frankly, as I was tweeting yesterday and talking, I personally feel that, they read too many headlines about Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. It's going to come down to them in the NFC, to Seattle and the Saints. Who gets home field advantage because they can't beat the Saints. And I think they bought into it. Let me just say this. If you give up almost 500 passing yards that the Saints gave up to Matt Ryan, you're not going to anybody the Super Bowl. And on the other hand, Atlanta's no great shakes either. I mean, both defenses were atrocious. What really disturbed me about that game, you have all of the Ryan defense they put in place, have much more talent the Saints do on defensive side of the ball than they had a few years ago. But what really disturbed me was those defensive linemen did not show up to play. You have a Pro Bowler in Cam Jordan, who's young, who's getting better, who's gone into the end of his rookie contract. You think he would be highly motivated. Junior Gillette on the other side wants to make a Pro Bowl, just got a big $40 million contract extension. I mean, not one sack. And the problem was this offensive line for the Falcons was atrocious, and then they lost the rookie Matthews, they lost him in the game.
Yeah.
So you were dealing with basically a third-string tight end ragamuffin unit, and you couldn't put any heat on the quarterback. That's not good. And then the excuse was, well, Matty Ice kind of moved in the pocket. If you're having trouble with Matty Ice, you're going to have some trouble.
Matty Ice.
Russell Wilson, you're really going to have some trouble.
Listen, I made this comparison to a friend of mine. Matty Ice is nowhere near Colin Kaepernick, okay? He is not mobile in the pocket. He is not mobile, period. And yet New Orleans was still unable to get pressure on him. And speaking of Colin Kaepernick, that's where I'm going to go next. There has been a debate between us here at the ASN staff that Colin Kaepernick is not an elite quarterback, and I will continue to defend Kaepernick because I believe that he is. And if Sunday's performance, where he did not toss an interception, where he was efficient in the pocket, and he was, what's the word I'm looking for, mobile enough to get around, I say he's an elite quarterback, especially when you take your team to 2 NFC championships plus a Super Bowl. Your thoughts?
I think definitely he's an elite quarterback. I think you have to temper the expectations. One, people forget he's still very young.
Mm-hmm.
Two, he didn't have great shakes and the total complement of wide receivers for much of the year.
Right.
Michael Courage is hurt yet again. And then thirdly, in terms of is he elite or not elite, when you go to 2 championships, NFC championships, plus he could be hurt. We know the coaches are notorious for basically lying about the health of players.
Right.
So, and I understand why, to get a competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't find out about it until the year after. They say, well, this guy really was hurt the whole year.
Right.
But you can see he simply maybe hasn't been as explosive as he was, but you don't know what kind of injuries, what kind of things that they're dealing with. But when you can just be more of like a manager of the game, like you say, not turn that ball over, but still have the ability to explode the way he does, he's elite all the way in my book.
He's definitely elite, and he has been since his first start. And I heard this stat on ESPN a few months back, and it's the most incredible stat that I have ever heard. Since his first start in 2012, now this should be ironclad proof that he's an elite quarterback. Since his first start in 2012, he has the 3rd highest QBR in the NFL. And I believe the order was Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Colin Kaepernick, and Drew Brees. How about that for a Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks?
If you're in that company, that tells you a lot. And I'll tell you a lot when you're speaking of a Russell Wilson or a Kaepernick. They have that it factor, that swagger. There's something about them that makes them special. Because we see too many guys that they keep saying this guy's going to be on the verge of an elite, say like a Joe Flacco.
Mm-hmm.
And we see there's the times that they just don't have that ultra confidence that there's just something, the slightest thing goes wrong and they just crumble. And all of the things that are swirling around that San Francisco 49er team and organization, because at the same token, while we're talking about whether Kaepernick is elite, he's dealing with a lot. He's a young quarterback.
Right.
All of this talk about there's going to be an uproar in the locker room, that people don't have faith in Harbaugh. Is he really committed to the team? That's a lot to deal with. And for a young man, and he's the leader of the team on the field, the quarterback, and he's dealing with all these different things going on, all of the different arrests, the injuries that have happened to that San Francisco team. To me, he's a head and shoulders elite quarterback.
And of everything that's being talked about around the 49ers locker room, of course, with Ray McDonald and his domestic violence situation, we'll get into that in a little bit. And, there's going to be an uproar. Nobody believes in Harbaugh. Let me tell you something. Harbaugh believes in this team more than I think. Harbaugh is one of the coaches in this league that believes in this team more than any other coach in this league, period. Because for him to deal with all the outside distractions that he has dealt with, and part of the distraction is when he made the switch from Alex Smith to Colin Kaepernick 2 years ago. So that started all the distractions. And you're going to sit here and tell me that he doesn't believe in his team, that he's not getting along with management? Come on, I'm not buying it. And the performance Sunday and the performance last year when they went 12-4, they came out of the gate 1-2 and had more interceptions than touchdowns. And yet they still go 12-4, get to the NFC Championship, came within a Richard Sherman eyelash of winning the NFC Championship and going back to the Super Bowl, and Harbaugh doesn't believe in this team? I don't buy it.
not only that, if there is any kind of grumblings between the management and Harbaugh, I have one thing. Imagine what this team, remember what this team was like before he came on board.
Yes.
This wasn't the storied, gloried Mount Rushmore, San Francisco 49 organization. It was in a shambles.
Yes, it was.
He put them on the map. He made the moves to get the right players in the right positions with astute drafting. So he turned this organization around and put this on a footing for a Super Bowl path. And like you said, sometimes the expectations are just too high. Of course, you want the Super Bowl, but you're not going to win a Super Bowl. There's a reason there's been so many different teams that have won the Super Bowls in recent years.
Exactly.
So sometimes, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And a lot of times I think there's just too much of unreasonable expectations. And like you say, if he wasn't committed, you think it would take him long for him to get another job somewhere?
No.
Absolutely not.
No, it wouldn't, and I'm just sick of hearing all that stuff. Mark Clark, the man with the New Orleans accent, joining Snowman in the morning via the Buffalo Wild Wings hotline. A pleasure to have him on, talking all things NFL this morning on this Wednesday as we prepare for Week 2. What are some other performances around the NFL that kind of – I want to look at the dark side of the NFL first. And the way I want to attack it is this. So many people have come to me saying, why don't you talk about this game or this game or this game? I want to ask you, my friend, an NFL aficionado, what are some of the other games that absolutely struck you with teams giving putrid performances like you stated earlier with New Orleans?
One of the main ones was the Kickoff Classic. I mean, Green Bay, that was just pathetic. There was just no excuse. That game was not close. That game was not competitive. And let me just say this about Seattle. Seattle, obviously, young talent. They keep some of the dynasty in the making. But, a lot of things in terms of sports, particularly football and NFL, is mental. And if you go into a situation thinking that you're going to be defeated, thinking that you're going to be vanquished, you are. Now, some people say, well, no one goes into a game, not in the NFL, not professionals. When you basically say, we're not going to throw to Richard Sherman's side, you're basically saying we've lost. Because how often are you going to win by just ignoring one side of the field? And I think right now, every NFL team that's proven otherwise is intimidated. They're intimidated, which is why I have hope for San Francisco. They're intimidated. You're dealing with a bullet, a proverbial bullet.
Yeah.
You got to hit that.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is they don't attack this team. They don't attack them. You have to attack them with the run. You have to beat it and run it down their throat. Go keep going at Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman has been beaten many times. But the problem is you go into it and say, oh, he's the best cover corner. We can't even go over there by him. Let me tell you, even in his heyday, Deion Sanders, people still would go at him.
Yeah.
Because you have to, and Deion was beat at times. If you give up a touchdown, an interception or two, or whatever, so be it. If you lose that way, so be it. But eventually you're showing, I'm going to stand up for you. This is going to be a competitive game. This is when they're going to fight. Now, they basically, Green Bay, shut down and said, we're not going to even go to his side. You still get your brains kicked in.
Exactly.
So you want to go out like that? It made no sense. It was extremely disappointing. Another game that really disappointed me was you've had all these things. I know they've had a lot of injuries, but that game, that late game, Monday night between the Cardinals
and Chargers
was just bad. That was not good football.
Oh my gosh.
That wasn't great defense. They keep saying, well, the two defenses. No, that was just bad football. And I didn't buy too much into the Chargers last year, but I can't see these teams really mounting anything to really stop other than San Francisco to stop Seattle in the West. But those games really stood out for me.
Let me go back to the NFC Championship last year as two of my buds, Josh Lopez and Ronald Murchison, are in the chat room with us on Spreaker, and you can hear Mark on Spreaker as well with the Sports Parade podcast. You mentioned a lot of it being mental. And were it not for a great play by Richard Sherman, I go back to this. San Francisco would have done what no other team had the nerve to do. And if you look at that NFC Championship, take the turnovers out of the equation, because, yes, Colin Kaepernick did turn the ball over 3 times in the fourth quarter. Take everything else out of the equation. There was one thing that San Francisco did that no other team has done in Seattle, and you just talked about it, Mark. They ran the ball down their throats.
Yes, because that's what beats a team down. That's what, and it doesn't pay. It pays dividends, particularly in that second half when you start wearing those guys out. Because I don't care how big, how talented you are, when somebody is constantly just hitting you, especially when you got a running back and you're hitting that second defensive line, you're hitting the linebackers, you're hitting those safeties. Guess what? That's when guys start putting their hand up. They need to breathe. They need to come out. That's when you're able to break big plays. And you have to play it like that. You have to go into it like that. You're not going to out-finesse someone a whole game.
No.
That's simply not going to work. I'll tell you something else I noticed about Seattle. I noticed this last year. I think, Pete Carroll for me is just like he's just one step above a lot of people. I think they've come up with the decision that, you know what, so what if we get penalties for interference or being too handsy with the receivers? Because I think they've made a conscious decision to say we're going to not only play bump and run, we are at times going to foul. And I think they foul on a lot of plays because guess what? They know these referees, they can't call every foul. They just can't do it because the game would never end.
Right.
And I think they realize that we can get in these guys' heads, we can get the receivers off their game, like a Demaryius Thomas who was totally befuddled last year.
Yeah, he was.
You get in their head, and you not only have you shut down one side of the field, but then you're in their head. And the way to combat that is, you know what? Let's play the same way. Let's play physical with them on offense and on defense. And I think to flip it, dealing with Seattle, if you're an offensive team attacking them, a defensive team attacking them, I think you really allowed Russell Wilson to have too big of a comfort zone.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson looks like Joe Montana out there in terms of how long he's been playing because there's really no pressure. And a lot of that comes from having that defense, but a lot of that has that he hasn't been tested the way they need to be tested.
Mark Clark joining me here on Snowman in the Morning, talking all things NFL. Here are a couple of other games that were absolutely putrid to me. One of them was the Bills and the Bears, and I got a couple reasons for that. The other that really surprised me was New England and Miami. The one-time invincible Patriots go down to Miami and get beat down again because they got beat in Miami last year. They got beat down in Miami last year, and they get beat down in Miami again. I'll make this comparison. New England can beat Miami in New England, but can't win in Miami. The same way that Atlanta can't win in New Orleans, and New Orleans can't win in Atlanta.
Well, let me start with Chicago. And I know you don't. I don't think you're into fantasy, but Jay Cutler, I made the mistake of having Jay Cutler as my fantasy quarterback. A lot of teams. I drank the Kool-Aid. I drank the Kool-Aid.
You drank the Cutler Kool-Aid?
I drank the Kool-Aid that they're going to be explosive. You're going to be an MVP candidate. And then you get into this game and say, well, where's the offense? Where's the 500 yards? Where's the 5,000 yards season coming from? This is the same Jay Cutler. This is the same guy. The same guy with a cannon for he has a Ferrari for an arm, but then his mental makeup used to be Hugo. It just doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing over and over. I'm like, come on, you have these type of wide receivers. You got everything, you got the talent, but you can't do anything. This just was not good football. Then wasn't that game played at Chicago?
Yes, it was at Soldier Field.
Your home opener, you have everything going for you, and you lost to the Bills. The Bills, it's like practice. The Bills. Come on, the Bills. No matter what ownership.
Wait a minute. How did Allen Iverson put it? We're talking about practice.
Practice. Talking about the Bills at home, at your home. You lost to the Bills.
I mean, EJ Manuel. Listen, the Bills are a good up and coming team, but EJ Manuel is nowhere near Jim Kelly. All right.
No. And I knew this wasn't the Chicago defense of old. But man, if you can't handle EJ Manuel, you're going to have some trouble.
EJ Manuel is. Oh yeah, EJ Manuel is getting better. All right, I will put that out there. EJ Manuel is getting better, but he's not Jim Kelly.
Not only that, he's getting better. But the thing about getting better, It's like when Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to do with somebody like E.J. Manuel. You can't let that get confident. You got to hit him in the mouth like right away. Say, listen, son, we know who you are. You are who we thought you were. But it really was bad. Between Green Bay and Chicago, and then we know the Lions, I don't know who's going to come out. I mean, but Chicago is definitely not ready for prime time.
I would, you know what? I made this comparison to a lot of Bears fans that I know, and I know a few of them are listening. I've had so many people ask me, how come the Bears can't get it right? And I will point to the exact game where their nerve was taken from them and hasn't been restored. The NFC Championship 2010 in Soldier Field. Green Bay and the Bears. Everybody hyped the hell out of this game for a full week. And every pundit, 9 out of 10 times, picked the Bears because they were at home. Now to bring in the analogy that you just showed me about Mike Tyson, everyone has a good plan until they get hit in the mouth. The Bears got socked in the mouth in 3 plays because that bad man called Aaron Rodgers took them right down the field in 3 plays. They scored. It was 7-0. And since that moment, I believe the Bears have never recovered. It cost them a coach. It cost them a few players. And it cost a few people. And let me use something you said this morning, drinking the Jay Cutler Kool-Aid. All right?
Yeah, because you've taken a proverbial halt. You know, there was something about, I forget who said it. I want to say it was Hank Stein, but it could have been somebody else. He said when you take over a losing organization, the reason you want to win all your preseason games and you want to win, particularly you want to win big in the preseason is not because the games don't count, but you want to win because you have to change the mentality because losing, like I said, Detroit franchise, Lions, with all the expectations, it becomes like some kind of way is going to go wrong. And like you said, when they took the Hawk and ripped it out of the Bears, it had ramifications all down the line. And even though you don't have all of the current players, you still have an aura hanging over them that some kind of way something's going to go wrong. Cutler's going to throw an interception. Cutler's going to go down hurt. We just simply can't do it. And now you don't even have the luxury of having that defense to bear you out time and time again to keep you in the playoff front, to keep you relevant. So, like you said, I bought into it. I admit it. I can admit it. I bought into it.
I'll do the same. I'll do the same.
Yeah. Now, to talk about that New England game, a lot of people were upset with me. I went on air in New Orleans about 2 hours before the game, and I said, it's extremely unfair of schedulers. This isn't random to have the Saints of Atlanta open the season 2 years in a row now.
Right.
Last year, Atlanta had to come to the Dome. Wasn't fair. It was the last-second end zone pass. The now-retired Tony Gonzalez and the rookie Vaccaro, he broke it up.
Yep.
Otherwise, you never know. And opening games, why it's just an opening game, they have a way of affecting you all throughout the rest of the year, particularly a game like that.
Those openers have a way of messing with you, man. They have a way of messing with you.
The point I made was about the Saints, about this Super Bowl bust. There's a window. Every team, every organization, every franchise, there's a window, and that window is closing. Might be 2 years. You know, I don't think it'll be 3 years because of salary cap ramifications, a lot of things, but particularly when compared to the Patriots, I said Drew Brees is 36 years old. He's 36 years old. He's going to be 36 in January before the Super Bowl. How many more years? I don't care what Drew said this foolishness he wants to play these 45. Listen. These are dog years on athletes. Dog years.
Yes.
I don't even care if it's the quarterback position. And your skills start to erode. Me personally, this is my opinion, I don't think Drew Brees is the quarterback he was in 09 when we won the Super Bowl.
Right.
That doesn't mean you can't throw for 5,000 yards. That doesn't mean, but it can be slight differences. Now, with the Patriots, Tom Brady is older. I just don't think Tom Brady is the quarterback that he once was. And one of the things, besides being a killer and just cold, calculating, being able to go out there and destroy him, one of his greatest assets to me was his deep pass. And I know we've seen all kinds of stuff about they haven't had the talent in the wide receivers and all that talk. But if you look at that game, those deep passes that he did just were not good throws.
No.
Now, you take away Gronkowski and the injuries that he's had, and it's just a matter of time before he goes down again with something. Even though they try, and I think when they bring him in, you can't have a guy that you're trying to bring in and say, well, we're just going to limit him to 18 snaps or 20 snaps. Because basically, when he's in there, then you're trying to force feed him the ball. And it makes it very easy to defense. So you take that, and then you take Belichick. Let me just say this, all this, I know he's great. You can't take it away. He's a Hall of Famer. But like a lot of coaches, but particularly him, he has a penchant for, doing things that go against common sense. One of which is Stephen really is his best bet. Stephen really could be a beast. Yes, he has a fumbling problem, but when you put a guy on the bench and you put a guy in the mindset of saying that you're a step away from being cut and not making the final roster, what kind of aura are you putting in this kid's mind? And I think it affects the team. I think it affects the players. And I understand that he feels the need like to move Logan, move him in the trade, and he's done it over and over again, move guys. And I don't care how much he says he loves Vince Wilfork. If the right offer comes around, he'll move him as well.
Yeah, he will.
And I don't think there's any loyalty to those players. I think a lot of that affects the belief that they have in Belichick, in the organization, in his leadership. And quite simply, sometimes it comes to the end where, you know what, you've been there a little bit too long. And I think the whole aura about the Patriots is slowly have been eroded the past 2 or 3 seasons. And I think they finally break through because they treated, especially in that AFC East, those other teams treated them like Seattle. Oh, we're going against the Patriots. And then when you look at them and you look at what they're producing on the field and what they're doing, why are you so fearful? Do what Miami did. Just hit them and hit them again and hit them hard. And let me just say this. No Sean Marino. All they want to do is say he's trash, he can't play, he doesn't have the skill set.
Oh, he can play all right.
He was a Marcel.
Oh, he can play all right.
He didn't care. And they beat the Patriots up bad. I mean,
yeah, they did.
Them up physically on both sides of the ball.
You know what?
But ESPN still has them ranked as the top
and I'm sure. You know who really? You know a rookie that really impressed me. A rookie running back that really impressed me by running hard on Sunday. There's a fellow in Frisco by the name of Carlos Hyde out of Ohio State.
Oh yes, he's just so big and quick. And maybe it was my imagination, but man, I was looking at Frank Gore, and in comparison, Frank just looks. Even though I think he's still capable, he just does not look to have the energy or the quickness or the burst.
Well, look,
he's a grinder. This kid is. I think this kid's going to be starting before the year's up.
Well, look at how long he had to carry the 49ers.
Oh yeah.
Look at how long Frank Gore.
It takes a toll.
Yeah, Frank Gore had to carry the 49ers for 4 years.
Oh yeah, they say whenever things start, they have all these game plans, all the things they wanted to do, open it up and do this, and probably halfway through the first quarter, okay, we got to give Frank the ball about 15, 20 times, 25 times, let him win, and it worked for so long because there's so much in your body that you have left. And the thing about running backs, they've done all the graphics and the charts that when they hit the age of 30. Or if you come off a season of 300 carries, unless you're somebody like Adrian Peterson, they don't just have a slow decline. Sometimes it's just boom. It's just gone. It's like
it's a drop.
There's no warning light coming on. But Carlos Hyde, it goes back to drafting and picking the players that you need and having a better talent evaluators than other people. I think he can be a beast. I really think he can.
He's going to be.
And speed, the vision, the strength.
You know what? Joe Buck said something.
I think they can get it to him right away.
Joe Buck said 2 words that describe Carlos Hyde right now. Heir apparent. He is the heir apparent to Frank Gore. He is strong. He is big, and I love Frank. I love Frank Gore. I will always love Frank Gore as one of the great 49er running backs. He has the team record for rushing yards. But Carlos Hyde made his presence felt on Sunday in Dallas. And to my buddy Josh Lopez, he's going to do it again in Levi Stadium against the Bears. I am sorry. I am sorry to the people that say to me all the time, you're just a 49er lover. You doggone tootin'. I've been a 49er fan since Joe Montana showed up in 1982. I know we went through some lean times. Like you said earlier, sir, every team goes through lean times. There is a window. It closes for a while, then it opens back up. Jim Harbaugh kicked that SOB wide open when he showed up and got the players in that he wanted to get in. Josh Lopez sent me a comment, says, not an impressive victory in my eyes because they have the Cowboys so many chances in the second half and barely scored any points. Let me tell you something, Josh Lopez. It goes like this. San Francisco 28, Dallas 17. If you go back to the NFC Championship in 1994 in Candlestick Park, what happened then? First quarter, Dallas turned the ball over 3 times. San Francisco struck and took advantage. A good team, be it San Francisco, Seattle, New Orleans. I'll throw Miami in the equation after what happened Sunday. A good team takes advantage of opportunities, and every team that won on Sunday, Mark, took advantage of opportunities that the other team gave them, period.
Took advantage. And let me just say this about San Francisco. And obviously, I'm not a homer or anything because I had to sit through all of the Niners and the great Bone Patrol Ricky Jackson teams to see San Francisco time again. Just knock us. We were the ones that were in the division because San Francisco, used to be in the division.
Oh, come on! You remember all the New Orleans San Francisco games between the Superdome and Candlestick Park? Are you kidding me? It was when CBS. Listen, a good memory. When CBS had the NFC package, every time New Orleans and San Francisco got together, it was a late game and it was must watch. Period.
Yeah. And I remember all these great Hall of Famers like Steve Young, they were saying that there was no tougher opponent than the Saints. A lot of times that was their Super Bowl. They knew they had to get that defense. That defense of Ricky Jackson,
Vaughn Johnson, Sam Mills.
And the late Sam Mills. Yes, but speaking of that, and speaking of Carlos Hyde, you look at all the running backs, you talk about the Dallas game. That game wasn't as close. You can't just look at the score of a game. That game wasn't as close. And sometimes you play to the competition and you start to let up a little bit. That game, there was never a doubt that San Francisco was in control of that game.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of Carlos Hyde, or even go back to Frank Gore, I remember when there was a game, I want to say 3-4 seasons ago, either the year before the Super Bowl for the Saints. And Jonathan Bellman, ex-Saint, he was supposed to be the leader of the Saints defense. Never did like Jonathan Bellman.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize he had gone to high school at the University of Miami with Frank Gore.
Wow.
And not the University of Miami. I know they played high school ball, but whatever the case was, they were supposed to always be rivals. And I think it was a Sunday night or Monday night game. And I mean, Frank Gore just tore him up every time he put his soul in something to run around it. And the point I'm making is, you can tell superior talent. You look around the league at running backs. You can tell some guys may run hard, some guys may have some speed, but you can tell a guy that's just head and shoulders above. That's what Frank Gore's done most of his career. And Carlos Hyde may even be on that level, or who knows one day. You can see it right away. I remember preseason, Ricky Williams was a rookie, and Edgerrin James was a rookie.
Yes.
And I said after one series of seeing Edgerrin James, he was a better running back than Ricky Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And it played out that way. You could just see it. You could see the vision, the quickness, the elusiveness. You could see it. That's what you're going to be dealing with in San Francisco. With a young quarterback, you're going to find them hard to beat for years to come.
Look at the line of running backs that San Francisco has had, and we're spanning like 2 or 3 decades. For a while, Amos Lawrence was the man, and then a fella named Roger Craig showed up. And then his blocking back was Tom Rathman. A couple years later, you had Ricky Waters out of Notre Dame. And Tom Rathman then became William Floyd out of Florida State. Look at this two-back system that they have now with Frank Gore and Carlos Hyde. They're going to be dangerous running together.
They're going to be dangerous. You bring back memories of Ricky Water. One of the great things I remember during my career is being on Radio Road during the Super Bowl and broadcasting. And one of the people one day that we interviewed was Ricky Water, and I was saying he did not get the credit that he deserved.
He really didn't.
For the talent and what he did. I said, you, sir, my hat's off to you. And I got up and gave him a round of applause. And, my partner said, oh, you're gone overboard. I said, no, this guy was terrific. He really was ahead of his time. When you think of the skill set that he brought, he was just a beast. And they've had a great lineage of running backs. And
what people don't realize about Ricky Waters, he holds a playoff record, 5 rushing touchdowns in a game. Did it against the Giants in 1993.
Oh, yeah.
Taking a peek back at Week 1 with Mark Clark, Snowman here, and we're presented by Sowers Ford of Michigan City. Visit them online at SowersAuto.com. Great to have the man with the New Orleans accent, Mark Clark, riding shotgun with me. Let's take a look at some of the other teams and their performances in Week 1. In particular, I want to go to Monday night in Detroit. What happened with the New York Giants?
The Giants, a lot has been. Eli Manning has knocked a lot, and I think a lot of it is unfair because you don't just. I don't think you just fall into 2 Super Bowls if you're Eli Manning. Now, they've looked atrocious, they've looked pathetic, but let me just say this. What dummy, one idiot decides to say, you know what, we need to be running the San Francisco offense. We need to be doing this. We need to be doing that. I think they've totally, either you have a coach in Tom Coughlin or you don't. But don't say, you're the coach for now, but we need you to do this and that and change this and hire this person. Once you do that, it just takes everything away.
Yeah.
This is not the Giants team of these great defensive lines where they could win, they could lose. I remember they said that he was about to be fired. They were 3-6 or something. Then they went on this terrific run. They don't have that anymore, and Eli doesn't have a lot of weapons. Anytime he's throwing, that fade pattern on the out where the guy's just supposed to turn around and the ball's there. And you got Ruben Randall that's already 30 yards down the field. And you've gone through minicamp.
Yeah.
You've gone through OTAs. You've gone through training camp and preseason, and he's still not on the same page. Let me tell you, you can't blame Eli. Come on, everybody knows the quarterback's the smartest one on the field.
Yeah.
It's not him. And then, so it's very easy, like for double team, like a Victor Cruz. You saw Cruz had, I think, 2 catches for 7 yards. Thank you, by the way, Giants, to help me win. I thought I was going to lose because my opponent had Victor Cruz, and he was only down by 5 points, but they only got 2. Thank you. But it's just going to be tough. I can see right now the New York Giants are on the clock.
Yeah.
On the clock.
Yeah.
I could see them easily not winning but 2 or 3 games this year. No problem at all. And then they drafted this rookie, Odell Beckham, out of, because I was in the barbershop yesterday talking exactly about the Giants because a guy lost a bet. And I said, let me tell you something. If you're counting on the Giants this year, let's just say Odell Beckham, okay. Man, when you have a hamstring problem that's running 4 months long, what kind of hamstring is wrong with your hamstring? You need to go see some therapy. You got to go to the Centers for Disease Control, something. Something is not right when you got a hamstring problem for 4 months.
And you know who the Giants would be behind in the draft? The Dallas Cowboys. Listen, there was a statement made. Let me say this. There was a statement said about Tony Romo. I believed it for all 8.5, 9 years he's been in the league. And the statement goes like this. Tony Romo is better than every non-elite quarterback in the game.
That's how they put it. It's better than they had to preface it. Let me just say this. Talking about Odell Beckham, I hate to get on the kid of the hamstring, but
right.
I thought one of the most ridiculous things I ever heard. We were doing a show, and the guest was Jim Hans at the time, the Saints coach, and I had to call him to fire. So the Saints organization actually used to be scared if I was on the radio.
Right.
So they actually asked the guy, is Mark going to be on the radio? I'm like, well, I'm not going to disrespect the guests. I'm not going to, tear them apart. But we had,
Absolutely.
I asked the question that then about Dante Stallworth, because Dante Stallworth was always a bum.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what's the problem? He always has hamstring problems. And then, you know what Jim Haslett said? Well, I think it's just a case of him being too muscular. I'm like, really? Really? I'm like, why don't you tell him go get a six-pack and some of those Buffalo Wild Wings?
Too muscular? Wait a minute. Too muscular? That's what he said?
Yes.
Come on, Mark. Don't play with me like that. He said too muscular?
I call players like Odell. I call players like, you're talking about with the hand like Dante Stallworth when he was playing. And even Reggie Bush, I call them the one finger in the air. The church, when you're about to leave church, and church is the streets, and you put that one finger in the air.
Yep.
Every time they catch or they run out, that finger's coming up in there. They got to get out. Something's wrong. They done pulled something. Something's not right. Or they look like I remember in the NBA, it was Vince Carter. They look like he got shot with a shotgun. And he has to come out the game, and the next day he's back in. Something's just not right when you have constant problems. And I could go on and on. I have a theory, but we don't have time for that. I think these guys I think these guys work out too much. I think when I came up, give you a little bit of my background. I grew up in training camps. Mm-hmm. You could actually have kids. I ran around the Saints training camps, met coaches, players. I remember when guys would come to my doorstep to see my dad, the legendary champ walk, and the guys had a belly hanging over the belt. You see them a couple of months later, they're slim, they've been in shape.
Yep.
And I think they're just working these guys out, too many supplements, too many weight. So that's why you see guys tearing biceps and all these horrific injuries. Hey, stop working out so much. But the Giants are going to be brutal this year, man.
Yeah.
Really brutal.
Here's another team that I thought was going to do something, and I know my friend Joshua Jackson is not going to like me for this, but let's just be honest. How can you go into Philadelphia, if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you have a 17-0 lead at halftime, and you don't score again, part one? Number two, you give up 34 second-half points. Are you serious?
It's the Jaguars. It's the Jaguars. Oh man, it's the Jaguars.
Just like it's the Cowboys during the late game. All right.
Come on, it's like come on. How many Charlie Brown are you really gonna kick that football? You come on. It's not. And everybody's running. Fantasy football, they're running for Allen Hunt. So they running. They got to pick him up. Come on. Quarterback. So come on. The run. Gerhardt, really? You really pinning your hopes on Gerhardt? Come on. He's like a fatter version than Peyton Hillis. Come on. He's a fatter version. He's gonna get that ball. You know, look, they already said he got an ankle problem in it. You know he's just waiting for IR. It's just a matter of time.
That's it.
It's a matter of time. That team, I think they're going to be improved, but this is an example of what we talked about earlier about just a losing mentality for an organization, for a team. Something's going to go wrong. They're going to draft guys and have talent, but they're going to have the drug problems. They're going to be suspended, as we've seen with that team. Something is simply not going to go right no matter what. And I think it's just a mentality. And until they get a coach that can change that mentality of that organization, that team, they're going to constantly struggle. Now, I'll flip it, though. Everybody's praising Chip Kelly. Oh, he's just a genius. He's this and that.
No, he's
I said
not.
this last year. I don't care how many more plays he can run. That does not work in the NFL.
No.
You don't have the depth, and you can't run these guys. The more you run these guys out there, you know what you're doing? You're putting them at risk for more injuries.
Yes.
And they've lost now, basically, for, he's IR. They've lost the best guard in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone to 10 games. Now, you take the best guard, arguably, in the NFL. Now, all of a sudden, you're exposing your quarterback.
Yep.
Who, let's face it, Nick Folk, he hasn't been around long. He hasn't been the same player that he was last year.
Mm-mm.
And you're exposing LaShawn McCoy. And let me just say this about Folk. All this great accolades, everything. Oh, he had 28 touchdowns, whatever it was, and no interception. he benefited from playing the Dallas Cowboys.
The Oakland
Raiders. 8 of
Raiders.
his games were against the worst defenses in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to look at the matchups when you evaluate him.
Yeah.
Are you taking that guard away? You've already taken Deshaun Jackson away. And Macklin, he had that pass, but that was kind of fluky when he caught that. That's going to be rough for him coming back from that ACL in that first season. This team, I don't think, is going to be the bells and whistles and all those skyrockets that people think they are going to be either.
How big is the injury to rookie Jadeveon Clowney of the Houston Texans? And do you believe that it's because of the turf down at NRG Stadium in Houston?
I really don't. And, I'm glad that I happened to, while I was waiting to go on with you, I was listening to Chris Calder, and he said, no, he wasn't surprised that he got hurt. So Greenberg asked him, what do you mean? He said, because he's an athlete. He's an athlete. And I said, what does that mean? He's not a real football player. He's just a great athlete playing a position.
Right.
And he said a lot of times, in his experience, when you see great athletes, but you don't see football players, they don't know how to protect themselves. They don't know the moves to make, and it can be something very subtle. And I thought that, from first he had the sports hernia thing, he had the thing at South Carolina, where was he hurt? Was he worrying about the draft status? Was he worrying about that? And I think, I don't care how much he gets look, he hit the guy in the backfield, he put 2 sacks. I think he's going to be that type of player. And I don't think he's going to have a long career at all. I don't think he's going to have a great career. So, yeah, the turf may be messed up to listen. But, they got a lot of bad turfs around there. Come on, look at the Raiders. They're playing on that baseball infield. There's a lot of jacked up turfs, but I think you're going to see a situation where he's constantly, underperforming and getting hurt. Is it going to affect him? Obviously, it's going to affect him because, a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon. They played a future team. Come on.
Yeah, they
did. Played the Redskins. And I'm sorry, I've said it over and over again. RG3 is not the same player that he once was, and I don't think he ever will be. You ruin that player. You ruin him. And Shanahan and that owner allowed that kid to play in those playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that knee was just held together by a shoestring. And to let him go out there, I don't care how much he wants to go out there. If he didn't have enough sense to risk his career, they should have understood the investment and the franchise and the future. And when you look at him now, if you can't run, it's the thing about these running quarterbacks. If you can't run, what do you have? It's the same thing with Michael Vick as he got older and kept getting injured. You basically, there's really nothing to you anymore. You're just like a showpiece that can come in every now and then and do something for a player or two, but on a consistent basis, you're not going to have it. So you deal with that with the Redskins, and that's another team that's going to be on the clock. Can you imagine a worse position than that? Which you have, come on, you got Dallas. You got the Cowboys, who in the past 14 years have had a losing record. They have not, that speaks volumes about that organization. And they have the Redskins, all these storied franchises in the NFL that have just been running the ground by owners that just can't get out of the way.
And that is so true, especially with the shift now. And I wanted to talk to you about this. Since Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, RG3 have shown up, have you noticed how those teams have changed their offensive scheme to the skills of the quarterback? And what I mean is the influx now of the read option. Every team in the NFL is trying to run a version of the read option, save maybe New Orleans, who loves to throw the ball all over the place, save maybe New England, who loves to throw the ball all over the place, and also Green Bay. Have you seen the influx of teams now trying to run the pistol? My question to you, do you think the pistol offense is going to be a fad, or is it going to stick around for a while?
I think it's going to be a fad because I think what you're going to see is, I always say that, they always like to say how brilliant these general managers and these pro personnel directors are across the league and these head coaches. And I always say, not really. They're not really. They're all confident. But basically what they do is they sit back and they say, oh, man, they won like that? Well, let's do that. So they basically just go from thing to thing to thing. It's the same thing with the draft. If somebody says somebody's good, and all of a sudden, man, he's good. We're gonna have to go after him. And you think about it, no, not really. I think when you look at the franchises that you say are not running, you know why? Because they have guys, particularly at the quarterback position, that have been able to do it traditionally and also are killers at that position. And I think what you're going to try to duplicate may not be possible because guess what? Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, these are special talents.
Yes.
Special talents. You're not going to get it from anybody else. When you looked at a RG3, you knew right away, I don't care how many yards he ran, it's like Michael Vick when he was in Atlanta. Sooner or later, it's going to come to an end. He's going to take the big hit. And I think that way you're going to see a lot of this pistol formations and a lot of this versions of run and shoot. These things like this are going to come to an end. It's going to be a fad.
Well, here's about a running quarterback. I want to use before we go to our halftime break. Steve Young comes to mind because when he came to San Francisco, he was a running quarterback, and then he took a couple of hits, and then Joe Montana got hurt. And the one thing he had to learn how to do was to be a pocket passer. And this is a question that I've gotten a lot, so I want to pose it to you. Did Steve Young set a great – and I loved watching him, and I'll just put that out there right now. Did he set a great example from learning how to become a pocket passer from a runner?
He did, but I'm going to tell you the difference. And I've seen a lot of interviews with Steve Young. I know you have too.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Young, I think, was always a great passer. He just happened to be so super athletic. The difference
That's
is
the truth.
These other guys are super athletic and runners, but not so much in terms of passing. So automatically, it's very easy for Steve to make the transition and realize, yes, I have all these great athletic skills and running skills, but guess what? I'm not cut out for this. It's like somebody says they're going to get it wrong with the mind, and they say you're not cut out for this life. Some of these guys are simply just great athletes and runners, but guess what? They're not cut out for the pocket. They're not cut out for throwing the ball. And then when they try to put them in the pocket and make them into that, it just doesn't work. It's the proverbial trying to get the square peg in the round hole.
That's all it is.
He did set that example, but the problem was when in terms of evaluate these guys coming out of college, can you throw the ball?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a great passer? It doesn't make a difference if you haven't had to do that given the college system or given your talent that you didn't utilize. You have to be able to have the vision as an evaluator to see this kid and understand this is what he does, but this is what he can do, as opposed to saying this is what this guy does, but we're going to make him do this. That's where they go wrong.
Second half of Snowman in the Morning will come after the break. Mark and I will talk some journalistic stuff. There was a point that Mark made that I absolutely loved, and we're going to talk about that when we come back in a couple minutes. Second hour of Snowman in the Morning is on the way, and you're listening to it live on the Arena Sports Network. Have you heard the good news about a company that started 4 years ago and worked at a relentless pace based entirely upon one simple premise? Have you heard the good news about a place you can go to enjoy positive, community-oriented information about the town, city, or region that you live in and the people involved? Have you heard the good news that you yourself can share stories about this same theme to others in your community? That place is LaPorteCountyLife.com. At LaPorteCountyLife.com, you can celebrate a company that had a crazy dream based on a belief that positive breeds positive and that people want to read, hear, and watch stuff about good people. At LaPorteCountyLife.com, you can go to a place to enjoy positive, community-oriented information about the town, city, or region that you live in and the people involved. Want to see more? Want to read more? Want to hear more? Then go to LaPorteCountyLife.com. Have you heard the good news? Get your best price on Ford trucks, Focus, F-150, Explorer, Escape, and Lincoln MKS, MKT, MKX, MKZ, as well as Fiesta, Fusion, Taurus, Mustang, Navigator, and all other new Ford Lincoln vehicles at the all-new Sowers Ford in Lincoln, Northwest Indiana's newest Ford Lincoln dealer. We offer new and used Ford Lincoln vehicles, parts, service, and used car. If you are in Northwest Indiana or near Michigan City, LaPorte, Hobart, Burns Harbor, Valparaiso, Chesterton, South Bend, or Portage, there is no comparison to the other dealers around town. We are about to earn your business license with top quality service and the most competitive pricing in Indiana. Stop by today at 3930 Franklin Street in Michigan City or give us a call at 219-879-5381. That's 219-879-5381. Or visit us online at www.sowersauto.com. Sowers Ford Lincoln, Northwest Indiana's newest Ford Lincoln dealer.
Now what's that? I say now what's that boy up to? Better check on it, yeah.
You're listening to Snowman in the Morning.
Ask a silly question and get a silly answer.
All right, it's the second hour, Josh. Wake up. Wake up, I said. Oh, man, we are rolling right along on this Wednesday edition of Snowman in the Morning. We are presented by Sowers Ford of Michigan City. Give them a call at 219-879-5381 or visit them online at sowersauto.com. We are also presented by LaPorteCountyLife.com, who always asks you, have you heard the good news? Mark Clark, the man with the New Orleans accent. You can follow him on Twitter at I want to get this right, at Mark's Spoken Word or Mark's Word?
Mark's Word.
Mark's Word. Mark's Word is how you can follow him on Twitter. He does a great podcast, Sports Parade Magazine. I love listening to it. And he called something out on a recent podcast I had a chance to listen to, and we've got to hit this. Joshua Lopez brought something up to me a couple of weeks ago about how the big sportscasting companies skew things so they can look good. You hammered that point home when you put the word insider in quotes. I love that. And especially, I can't use the word that he used, especially the way you defined it. Because a lot of these people now want to be insiders. And let me see if I can remember your definition. It's being friends with the team and kissing their tails. Sorry, I don't want to do that.
Well, let me just say that the origin of why I say that. You know, prior to Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, we did 3 hours a day, every day, and a Sunday show, post-game show. So I've had this debate for years about I don't like training camps and I don't like post-game interviews.
Right.
So, you know, people say, I understand that if you have like a radio show, TV show, a beat writer, you have to get sound bites, you have to get the stuff. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same token, one of the reasons I don't like it is because, you know, quite frankly, especially with training camp, I don't want to have a discussion about the third string tight end that's going to probably be wrangling costs at Walmart at the end of training camp. I don't want to talk for 2 hours about the 10th defensive lineman or something like that. It's just a waste of time. But to make the point you were making about the inside, you know, you have Jay Glazers and the Mortensons, and all these guys are great. They're fantastic. But I want you to think about this. Let's take it beyond the realm of sports.
All right.
If you're, if you're covering some company, you know, anybody, Reliant, whatever the case may be, whatever company that's your Fortune 500 company, and you're a business reporter,
mm-hmm.
you know, you can't, the nature of the job as a journalist, as a commentator, a radio host, whatever the case is, it's adversarial.
Right.
The reason it's adversarial, I'm going to quote, you know, one of the Chicago legends, Dick Buckus, when he described a sports writer. He said, you hang out with us all week, you hang out with us for training camp. You know, you eat when we eat, because if you go to training camps, you know, you basically eat at the training camp what the players eat.
Mm-hmm.
So you watch the film, you watch us go out about our business. The day of the game, this was a little bit before, but they actually used to have liquor in press boxes for years and years and years. It didn't stop until like the late 90s. You see, when you drink a beer, you eat a hot dog, then the game, you watch the game, you come in and stick a mic in our face and say, what happened? You know what happened. And the reason I don't like post-game interviews, and the reason I don't like the whole thing is because the nature of it is adversarial. So NFL teams want to spend like everybody else, like the government or anybody else. They don't want to tell you anything bad.
Right.
Who wants something bad about themselves? So there's no such thing as an insider. like they said, Jay Glazer, and I'm not knocking him, but he sleeps with 6 cell phones and all this stuff. You don't sleep with 6 cell phones, man. You don't know how to program one phone. You know what? They got this little thing called phones that are like computers. You could get more than you can get 100 people in.
Right.
But you want to think that they're on the phone and no. Basically, what they are is sucking up. They're kissing up to people.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, and I'm talking about people, I'm talking about whether it's a general manager, whether it's a coach, or even an owner, they say, you know what? When we decide to cut, say, Ray Rice, we're going to call you before it's done. So half an hour before the press conference, you can be the person who says, oh, NFL Insider, you're not a reporter. You're not a journalist. You're basically just somebody that's a gopher.
Yeah.
Because they're feeding you what they want. So a lot of times, and I'm going to bring this home, Dan Lebatard was going off on his show yesterday, and he said, I don't believe the NFL because Chris Mortensen and Jay Glazer said months ago that the NFL had seen the entire tape, not just the part that we saw of that elevator brawl.
Mm-hmm.
So then he brings him out of the break. He brings Jay Glazer in. So he says, Jay, you told us, I didn't say that. Where'd you get that from? He said, you said that. It was on the Dan Patrick show. Oh, no, you misunderstood me. I never said that. So what do we have to do? What do we have to do now? Go get the tape and bring it back? He did say it. But the reason they get messed up is that when you're supposed to be an insider, you have no credibility anymore. The minute somebody says that, if I hear Stephen A. Smith say, I'm good friends, how are you good friends with somebody how can you critique somebody and criticize somebody or report something bad that's your good friend? You can't. And I see a lot of guys, a lot of young reporters and stuff, and they tweet, I was on the fishing boat on the off day with the tight end or whoever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? You've already been compromised. The nature of it is adversarial. They don't want to put out anything negative. They don't want you to report anything negative. So what are they going to do? They're going to simply say everything positive. The reason you see all these hashtags that you see, whether it's the Bears, whether it's the 49ers, when you put a hashtag, every NFL team, NBA team, Major League Baseball team, any hashtag that has to do with their team, the minute you post anything, it comes to them. And they filter through it because they don't want anything negative. And a lot of times there's a lot of repercussions in terms of the Saints at times when under Jim Haslett actually got the beat reporter for the local radio station banned. Did not want him on there. There's times when I've seen people being threatened, saying you won't get the interviews, you won't get that. So when I see these guys that always seem to have the interview, that always seem to have the story, I'm not impressed with that because all you're doing is being force-fed something and you regurgitate it. And that's what I don't understand. You can't call yourself a journalist. Or you say you post something, you said, I think this is going to happen, and no one pays attention. But then if Jay Glazer says, oh, it must be true, Jay Glazer said it. No. A lot of these guys, to me, are frauds. They're simply part of it. They've been ingrained and just brought into it. You know, when I was coming up, when I was a little kid going around locker rooms, they feed you, they used to have chefs in the Saints press box. I mean, the actual chef. They had gourmet food, they had liquor. And the reason for that is they basically want to buy you off.
Right.
They wanted the reporters to be happy.
Right.
And you have to understand that you're not these people's friends. You're simply there to report on them. And you do an injustice to fans because you're not really getting to the heart of the story. And ESPN, with this Ray Rice in particular, is the broadcast partner. They're in bed. And you see it really in spades. And one of the worst things I saw was Mike Greenberg basically wanted to bring Floyd Mayweather into the equation about where if you're going to broadcast the games, what about Floyd Mayweather in the fights? I guarantee you if they had an agreement to broadcast Floyd Mayweather fights, he wouldn't have brought his name up. Yeah. And I think that's throwing Floyd Mayweather under the bus was brought up again today when they said it's unfair for Bob Kraft to say Robert Kraft to say Ray Rice should probably never play again. Who would sign him? And he was hugging Floyd Mayweather in his luxury suite at the Patriots game. Yep. I think all of this is centered on protecting the commissioner. And you see them been going on the public relations tour. And none of these so-called reporters, particularly this media mega giant ESPN, they're basically in bed and they're being told what to do, and it just makes me sick.
It's making me sick also. And I said a long time ago, after Disney bought ABC and ESPN, that ESPN lost its identity. And it's continuing to lose its identity, even though they're getting their toys upgraded, they're getting their studios upgraded, they're not getting their talent or their skills upgraded on how to be on how to be a journalist, like you said. And Josh said this to me in the chat room a couple of weeks ago when we were on. Last night I did a volleyball match at Marquette Catholic, and one of the parents, with kids, I always try to remain positive, but I will tell them how they are playing, because the kids will come up to me and ask me, how did we do? How can we get better? Okay? The athletic director at Marquette Catholic. Exactly. The athletic director, Tony Minus, my dear friend at Marquette Catholic, will ask me all the time, Brian, how can we get better? How can we promote our product? One of the parents came up to me, and this is where I get my reward as a journalist. He looked at me and he said, how did this team look? And the coach was standing next to me, Jan Fitzpatrick. I looked at her and I looked at the parent. I said there was one word that the coach used in a post-game interview, tentative. The coach nodded her head yes and agreed. The parent agreed. And a couple of the players came by and they looked at me and they said, you know what, Snowman? You're right. We were tentative. We will be ready Thursday night. When you get that kind of feedback from being honest, then you're doing your job as a journalist.
I agree 100%. You have to just be honest. And, a lot of times I've been around reporters. I've seen beat writers come and go with the Saints. I've seen reporters. I've seen TV anchor people go, sports anchors come and go. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't talk to me. They'll say, oh. And I told a couple of my radio partners, I said, let me explain something to you. If me telling the truth makes you uncomfortable, and me saying something that you're afraid to say, I can't stand these press conferences where the reporters, no one wants to ask a real question.
Right.
So and not only that, you have these guys at the commissioner. He's in a tick. I want to go on CBS and I want to talk to Lawrence O'Donnell. Okay. The first thing, when you make a statement, say about the Ray Rice thing, and you say, we ask law enforcement for everything. You don't follow up and say, okay, I understand you ask law enforcement for everything, but why didn't you simply go to the casino and say, hey, can I have a copy of the tape?
Right.
And especially when you have the casino management saying, we would have given it to us if we wanted it. So that's the thing, when you are hand-picked, you're not going to get any kind of hard questions. And speaking of this whole thing that you said with Disney and ESPN, this whole thing with bringing in these coaches and these athletes to spend the week, go on the campus, go on all the shows, how can you realistically criticize somebody? How can you speak on something like that when you're basically buddies with the person? You're good friends, my good friend, my this or that. And I'm not trying to roll anybody under the bus, but, it's, let's say the first take with Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How can I take you seriously? And I respect both of them, but how can I take you serious on this issue when you've acknowledged, particularly Skip Bayless, one of your dear friends and your good friends is Brandon Marshall.
Right.
Everyone knows Brandon Marshall's history. After from high school, from college, different women, domestic abuse. And I'm not knocking him or rolling him under the bus. This is just the facts. They had him on at the Pro Bowl in Honolulu with the cameras in the street cameras, beating up a girlfriend on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
This is nothing that's unknown. And the point I'm making is, on the one hand, you're talking about the Ray Rice issue. Me, as a person like you, that can see through things, but 2 weeks ago, you had Brandon Marshall, and you're embracing him, you're hugging him, and, he says he's gone to church, and he has a cross on. That's all fine and well. But once you get in bed, once you as an organization make that you're going to have current athletes on their day off, and they're going to come there, and they're going to be co-hosting shows with you, and they're going to be brothers with you, and they're going to go to the cafeteria, you're not learning anything about the game. Basically, you're being bought.
You are.
Because you're going to think second about criticizing somebody. I remember one time I called, and Joe Anson's last year's Saints coach. I called him. I said, he's not even bologna. He's not even chopped ham. I said, he's some kind of mixture of the scrap. And this guy that was doing the show, those three guys, he just like, he turned his mic off and he's turning red in the face and he's, you can't do that. The Saints will block us from all interviews. And I said during the break, I said, listen, if an organization is going to say we're not going to give anybody any players, we're not going to make room for players to be on your show, but guess what? You're not getting anything anyway. All you're getting is a bunch of fluff. It's like a coach's show. You're not going to get somebody that's actually going to tell you this guy stinks. And sometimes you have to just call it for what it is. Everyone knows, say in the NFL, if you get a high-round draft pick, even if he's a bum, they're going to keep him around because they don't want, as an organization, to say, you know what, we blew it.
Mm-hmm.
But all it does is hurt the organization for years to come. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what, I blew it and move on. And I think fans would respect that. And if more reporters, more journalists, more commentators had the attitude that you had, that I had, that a lot of people that we know had, it would be much better. You've given so much power now to these NFL organizations and these teams that they can handpick and they manipulate the news.
Yeah.
And it's bad enough, like you said, the conglomerates coming together like Disney, where they own everything. They own the broadcast radio station. They own the broadcast TV station for preseason games and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're controlling the message. And then you wonder why fans start to turn away from a sport.
Absolutely.
They don't feel like they're being given the right stuff and the real deal.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I love it. Mark Clark, you can follow him on Twitter at Mark's Word, joining the Snowman this morning on this Wednesday edition, talking all things talking journalistic truths here on the second half of Snowman in the Morning. We are presented by Sowers Ford, an official sponsor of ASN. A welcome to those listening on the Lake County Sports Network as well. Mark Clark, as mentioned, joining me on the Buffalo Wild Wings hotline. And I'll tell you something else, man. I said it before, and I will repeat it, and I will continue to repeat it. When you get the feedback that you want, when folks agree with your assessment, then and only then are you doing your job, because you are getting the answers and giving the answers that, quite honestly, the players want to hear, but especially in professional leagues, are shielded from hearing, because they're supposed to hear that from the coach. How about from somebody who watched the game as a fan and as a journalist and could pick off more things than the coach did? And you don't want to hear those answers and get better? Something wrong with that picture.
Yeah, you want to pretend that it didn't happen. I mean, just say what you feel. And one thing I'll say, too, about these, like, talking heads and journalists, you're trying to appease the wrong people. You're trying to appease the subject of who you're supposed to be interviewing. Mm-hmm. And it simply does not work that way. If you're passionate about something, if this is what you believe, even if you don't believe in what I'm saying, even if you have an opposing point of view, I can respect that because that's what you believe in. That's what you... I can't stand to see people that seem to change with the wind. Well, let's see, it's blowing this way. Let me go this way.
Right.
Let me say this. Love Stephen A. Smith. One of the most ridiculous things he ever said was during the Saints bounty key. And Skip Bayless brought up to say, well, I really haven't seen any actual evidence other than this coach saying that he did this and this player. And that could be because the guy's disgruntled. There's no real, evidence. There's no smoking gun. And he said, I believe in the commissioner of the NFL.
Oh my
he doesn't have to have any evidence. He doesn't have to show me anything. And I said, really? So in real life, would you want the judicial system to work like that? They put you on trial and they don't have to ever show you any evidence?
Mm-hmm.
And I speak of that when you're talking about Roger Goodell, when they asked him about the tape gate with the Patriots, and he said, I destroyed everything. And I said, so you just want me to go on faith that you're telling me the truth. And the worst thing in society that we can do is because somebody's in a certain position is just carte blanche say, okay, no matter what you say, I believe. And I think that's what's missing, that people don't even ask questions anymore. You see it in post-game interviews. You see it in in-depth interviews, in evaluations. And it's just a bad path that we're taking where you don't question anything because you have to. There's a little thing called, when I was a kid, called propaganda. Propaganda. And it's not just for opposing governments and wars. It's not just for that. It's for NFL teams. It's for sports teams. It's for collegiate teams. they're going to feed you propaganda to make themselves look good, and you have to be the one that says, okay, I know what you're telling me. Now, let me dig deep, and let me see what I see and what I believe in.
Why are so many sportscasters, especially ones on these big-time stations, why are they so afraid, especially lately, Mark, to do the necessary digging to find out what's really going on with the stories that they're covering? Why have they become, why are they walking on eggshells?
I think it's twofold. One, I had a good friend in New Orleans, legendary guy named Ro Brown, and he was on the local station for like 30 years. And tell you how a guy like how legend he is. I remember when Brett Favre won a Super Bowl in the Dome, and he's in the midst of 500-600 cameras and stuff. He pointed him out and he said, "Ro Brown," right at the end of the game. So
right.
You can tell a guy that really knows somebody. But this was like in the late 90s, and he told me, he said, and you've seen, there's a concerted effort by these TV stations and these papers at the time, which we know is almost non-existent, to go younger. So whereas they used to get rid of guys that were in their 50s, now you're getting a guy in his 40s. If I don't have to pay a guy, say, $65,000 or $70,000, I can pay somebody that's 22, 23, 25 years old, 30. If I can pay them half of that, I bring them. And what happens is you have people that are so young, they may have gone to college, but they simply don't have their craft in terms of being mentored, in terms of learning what it's like. And also have young reporters that have no kind of aspects of, if I'm going to be a bricklayer, I want to be the bricklayer, and I want to know every bricklayer throughout history. I'm a singer, I want to know every singer. I'm not going to be a pop superstar and say, I think that Lady Gaga is where pop music started. That's the problem. They don't know anything about their past. They don't know anything about their past.
You know what? You just brought up something. Oh, my goodness. Thank you for bringing this up, and I want to go there. I tell kids this all the time, especially when I do my trivia. We're going to bring the trivia back next week. When I do my trivia and I have kids come up to me, and I'm going to use the NBA as an example. I had a young man come up to me, and he said, "Who is your favorite basketball player?" I said, "Michael Jordan." And he was taken aback by my answer. And he said, "Okay, who's your favorite player playing now?" As if to try to trick me. I still said Michael Jordan. He said, "But he's not playing." I said, "No, but MJ can lace up the shoes and run circles around everybody that's in the league right now. That's just how much he transcended the league." He said, "Oh, you don't know anything about the NBA." "Oh, I don't?" When you come up with a question that I can't answer, then you talk to me. A couple weeks later, he came back to me and he says, "I have something I know you can't answer." I said, "Talk to me." He says, he said, "Name something that that Michael Jordan has that LeBron James doesn't have." And without even blinking, I said, "I'll give you two things that MJ has that LeBron doesn't have. A Defensive Player of the Year and 4 more rings." Next question. People need to learn their history.
They need to learn their history, and that's the problem with reporters. You're talking about players. Any player, any sport, LeBron, if you talk to them, they'll tell you the great ones. They'll tell you every player that played in the game dating back.
Yep.
Us growing up, I didn't see Elgin Baylor play. I didn't see Jerry West play. I didn't know them, but I know they were great. And this is a big bone of contentions I have with people when they try to say, well, the players of this era could not have, the players of that era could not have competed. I want to just get you to understand this. Of course, Wilt on Elgin Baylor are not going to look like these guys did, because the weight, training, the food, the diet, the trainers, everything plays into that. But don't be so naive and so short-sighted that you think everything began with you. You think that if you had these guys and you could bring them back today, you think they wouldn't look exactly like these players today? Of course they would.
Yeah, they would.
When you evaluate the greatest of all times, it's ridiculous for you not to automatically just want to weigh it towards what you've seen or what your era saw. You really can't do that. And I think that's the same thing with reporters and journalists. You got a bunch of people that they all think of Stuart Scott as the beginning of sports. And Stuart Scott is great, and I think a lot of people have copied his style with the hip-hop, with the slang and everything like that. But they don't understand what Stuart Scott did way before there was an ESPN.
Right.
And I think that's what people miss out. And I remember when I was talking at the Super Bowl, the last day before the game, one of the final interviews was with Sean McManus, the head of CBS Sports. And
right.
I didn't realize his dad was, help me out, the guy was Agnew Defeat. Remember on ABC Wide World of Sports?
I know you're talking about, yes.
That's his father. That's his father. I never realized that because they have a different name.
Mm-hmm.
And we were relating how he grew up like me. He grew up around all backstage at training camps, at all these different things. And I didn't realize until I got older that was my education. I understood how players interacted with reporters. And I'll tell you what, there was a more respect for reporters and players back then, because back then you didn't care if a guy drank a beer or if a guy, was out on a date late at night breaking curfew. You didn't report stuff like that the way they want to do now. Is that's big news, or that's something that's, we got to worry about that. But what you did do is you interviewed them and you got more in-depth. I remember sitting next to George McGinnis, smoking a cigarette an hour before the game at the old New Orleans Jazz. And he told my dad in a lot of blue language how he couldn't stand this young kid, Dr. J. He was paying him his money and make it up. I'm sitting there, we're sitting right down there as Jack Ramsey walks by and talks to us. Those are my experience. But there was a trust factor because you didn't mind, and my dad wasn't going to go and say, okay, George McGinnis was smoking a cigarette, and George McGinnis doesn't like Joey Sermon. But what he did do was he said, there's a lot of turmoil, and George McGinnis feels like he's not being respected by the organization. So I think now you got guys, they haven't bothered to be mental, they don't know their history, and they just come on and say, you know what, I got a female, I got some pretty hair, some nice clothes, if you're a male, I'm going to do booyah and do this and that, and I'm a reporter, and I'm gonna be buddy, and I want to hang out, or if you like Jay Glazer, I'm going to be pumping iron with the players, and I'm going to do some MMA with them. No, you are not these guys' friends, you're not their buddies, and if you think you are, then you're crazy. All you're doing is being brought into the clique. You've been brought into the clique like when they had LeBron with the second decision to go back to Cleveland and this Brian Windhorst.
Right.
Nobody knows them better than Brian. They're friends. No, he's basically using you as his mouthpiece. He's using you as a mouthpiece. That's the last person I want to talk to about.
Right.
I'm able to evaluate my own, what he's doing, what he should be doing. That way, they are so controlling now with the agents, with the lawyers. They want to control every aspect of every message. And once you fall into that, why do I need a reporter? Why do I need that? I can just go on their Twitter account and I'm going to hear the same thing.
Right.
So that's why I think journalism as a whole has gone down, because there's too much I want to be friends and buddies, and you cannot do that when you're reporting on an incident. That's the beginning of when something dramatic or bad happens, and you're not out front of it because you don't have a clue.
I had a chance last year to do an interview with former Chicago Bull Cliff Levingston, and it was the most delightful 20-minute conversation I had, and I did it live on my afternoon show. And Cliff didn't look at me and say, "What kind of questions are you going to ask me?" And he just came to my table. I did this at Marquette Catholic because he was out in Michigan City, and he said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "I'm ready to roll." And the reason that it was so delightful, that the first part of it, I talked about his organization and what he's doing for the kids. And then the second half of it, we got into some of the stories that he shared a couple stories with me about playing in the NBA. And he played with 3 Hall of Famers, Isaiah Thomas, Dominique Wilkins, and, of course, Michael Jordan. And when he mentioned that to me, the next question that just popped in my head, I said, what is the difference in playing with all 3? And he broke that down for me. That's the kind of interview I love having, especially when, you just have a question that popped in your head and you want to go deeper into something that someone says, and they go along with it and they let you in and let you into their soul of what happened during their career. As I said, that was the most delightful interview I've ever done. I didn't think about the fact that I was doing an interview with a former NBA champion. He just started sharing funny stories with me about being on the road and how it was different playing with Neek and Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan. And I just went further. I just kept feeding him questions, bouncing one off of a statement that he made. Now feed him a question at that, and he took it and ran with it. That was the best interview I've done.
You seem to be a lot like me. I'm not constantly worrying about breaking it down and the X's and O's and the Mike linebacker. I want to know like something that relates to me on a personal level. Like I said, I broadcast on Radio Row the year the Saints won the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Great experience all week long. 3 hours a day, interviewing all these ex-great athletes, just grabbing them because they have all of the agents and everyone wants to talk. One of the best interviews of all the people I interviewed, I don't know if you remember Conrad Dover. Offensive tackle. Dirtiest player.
Yep.
Conrad Dover, his knee, there's no knee. It looked like a watermelon. And he's showing us he's had I think 38 surgeries on the knee, but the NFL still says he's not disabled. And we're talking about, that was a big thing about these former NFL players. And if you've ever been on the Radio Row during the Super Bowl, it's just heartbreaking because you see these guys and, they're just brutalized. I mean, their bodies. I mean, it looked like a side of meat, like a piece of a watermelon. I mean, it didn't even look like a meat. And then we also interviewed Jamie Dukes, and he said he started this initiative because you have all these big guys, and anybody knows anything. That's not a natural weight to be 300 pounds or 400.
Right.
And a lot of times, because the reason that they have so much trouble in wheelchairs is because simply they're let go. The game just ends for them, but they're used to eating like full steaks and a dozen eggs and things to keep that weight up.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just saying about the problems with diabetes. But to go back to Conrad Dover, and like you said, something you relate to, he was just saying that, he lives in Arizona because, health problems is a little bit better for him. He said his neighbor is Phil Mickelson.
Oh, wow.
And he said he really didn't know him other than, he's Phil Mickelson. He said, this was a few years ago, because this was 2009, so he was talking about a few years ago. He said Phil Mickelson came to him one night when he was pulling up. He was talking to him. They just drinking a beer. And he said that Phil Mickelson told him, I respect what you did in the name of sports and the sacrifice that you made. Now, you have to understand, Phil's a golfer.
Right.
Phil paid full scholarship ride, he said, for each one of his 3 daughters. Plane fare, room and board, books, anything they need, any college that they want. And at the time, one child was a senior, and in 2009, the last child was finally starting college.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you're not going to read about that anywhere. You're not going to there's no cameras. He just did it for me. Not because he was my friend, but because he was a man that really appreciated sport and I transcend people's lives and the sacrifice that athletes make to entertain, to raise their families. And that was the best, and to this day, I always relate that story. And I've always thought different every time I view Phil Mickelson now, because a lot of times what you think in the image is not what's in a person's heart.
Mm-hmm.
And for a man to step up, because a lot of people could do it, and it may not be a lot financially, but for him, for Conrad Dover, it meant the world. And he knew the struggles that he was having with NFL and trying to, as all the players do, with trying to get disability, trying to get therapy, trying to get the nurses to come at home help.
Yes.
And he paid for everything to take that burden off his back. So I can relate to your Cliff Livingston interview.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. And people, if you're getting into journalism, you got to understand interviews like that is what make everything go. See, that's why I love talking to the coaches and the kids when I do my high school games, because they'll give it to you straight. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
When I covered Marquette on their run to the state championship, one of their star players is Ryan Fazekas. He said it to Providence. And I asked him how they came back and won in overtime against Bishop Knoll. I asked him, how excited are you for the win? He said one statement to me, and I've carried it to this day. I'm excited, but we need to get better for state playoffs. That was the first thing he said to me. And I'm going, wow, there are some pure interviews left.
Yeah.
You don't see that. anymore. Every member of that Marquette Catholic team throughout the course of the playoffs, including the coach, Donovan Garlitz, Tony Minus, the AD, who I had on for a postgame after we got out of the first round, they all kept saying, we need to get better. Donovan Garlitz kept harping it on every postgame interview I did with him. We need to get better. The reason I love doing interviews with high school coaches, they'll give, with your tagline, they'll give it to you straight. Every coach over 19 years have done that for me.
That's the great thing. And it's the funny thing that you said that, and it's different in terms of high school and college. So one reason I don't like going into pro locker rooms right after games is because a lot of times it's cheap shots from reporters, because you leave your blood, sweat, and tears, and you see guys that are bleeding, guys that have fingers that are dislocated, guys that are in pain, and 5 minutes, and they open up that locker room, and for you to just ask something stupid, why'd you drop the ball? Why'd you do this? You're trying to get a reaction to get a sound bite. And a lot of times it's just unfair. And I understand the frustration that a lot of players feel. And I think all it does is further alienate the experience, as opposed to you just ask a guy something straight up, particularly away from the heat of the battle, and you just ask a guy, just talk to me. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you thought happened. This is what I see. This is what I thought happened. Am I wrong? Did you see something different? Tell me why I'm wrong. And I think you can really get some deep conversation, something truly meaningful.
I had a chance to cover the Chicago Sky the last 2 seasons, and this year they're in the WNBA Finals against Phoenix. And you're absolutely right. When you can get a pure reaction from a player, that's the best interview to have, because I talk to Sylvia Fowles all the time. I talk to Elena Deladon all the time in the locker room or in the post game, and I talk to Pokey Chapman, the head coach, all the time. They're not afraid to speak the truth about their performance as an individual and their performance as a club. And when you can appreciate that, because when they basically will give you the lead. Because Pokey Chapman, after they lost to Indiana last year in game 1, and we had a big press conference upstairs in the media room, Pokey Chapman gave me my question when she said, we ran into a wall physically. And what she was talking about that I found out later, was the schedule, was the energy level. Indiana came prepared. The Sky were not. This was last year. That's why I love talking to people like that. That is missing. Yeah. Especially with giants like ESPN, that is missing. And as you said, that's one reason why journalism has gone down. My buddy Josh Lopez in the chat room saying, he's a student of the game. If you're a journalist, you are required to be a student of the game. And these big talking heads, save Jonathan Hood here in Chicago, are not students of the game anymore. They think because they get a microphone put in front of them and they get to host a show, they don't have to be students of the game anymore.
No, and it's too much. You're trying to be Hollywood. You're really not true. I'm a talk show purist. Not only do I grow up around radio stations with my dad and NBA and NFL training camps, but I love talk radio. I just listen to talk radio. One of the great things, I remember listening to Larry King on the radio when he was actually on the radio before saying that. And one of the great things about Larry King was because he would ask something that may not be journalistically correct in terms of the grammar, in terms of the structure of the sentence, but it was just like talking to a person. And I think when you approach people like that, that's missing. You have everything now where they have these bullet points and sound bites and things of that nature, and you think, I'm a journalist, I'm doing that. And then you tend to look down and say, well, I don't want to talk to this player because he's not going to get me where I want to go. Everyone now wants to be, what's next? How can I get to be program director? How can I get on this ESPN? How can I get my own show? So basically, you just have shock value instead of just being really passionate and true to what you believe in. And I think people can see through that. They can see when it's fake, when it's Hollywood, when you're just trying to do something, or when you truly believe in something. Because the worst thing you can do is flip-flop on your beliefs. But if you're true to yourself, you don't have to worry about that because whether you like it or not, this is who I am. But when you constantly going back and forth, I don't know who's going to show up from one day to the other.
Josh Lopez related that point to me, and he has told me, and he continues to tell me, and I love him and thank him for this. You got to be true to yourself, Snowman. You got to be true to what we are doing at ASN, and we are doing just that. This is one of the reasons why I wanted Mark to join me this morning and ride shotgun with me when he brought up that point about being a quote-unquote insider. And it applies to journalism, and it also applies to life, and this is where Snowman's spoken word comes in. Spoken word brought to you by Gigahertz. Be true to yourself, folks. I want y'all to be true to yourself. Be true to what you do. Be true to what you are. And Mark just said a moment ago, the moment you flip away from your own beliefs, you are in trouble. You're going to enter troubled waters. And the reason they're going to be troubled is because once upon a time, you knew and realized who you were. But when you make that flip into another set of beliefs, now there's something more you have to buy into, and you may not be ready to do that. And when questions come up that you're not ready to answer, it's even bigger problems.
That's exactly right. I remember when I was younger, people said, you're going to have to get rid of that New Orleans accent. You're going to have to speak this way and speak that way. And, I said, maybe because I was hard, I said, I have to be me. I have to be me. I actually have people on social media that will inbox me something and say, can you post this? I can't post this because I have people that may say something because they may not like what I post. And I said, listen, you have to be true to yourself. If you don't like what I have to say, I'm not asking you to agree with it.
Absolutely.
I'm not asking you to, but I'm the same way all the time. I treat everybody with respect. I befriend everybody. I'm loyal. And I'm going to tell you what I think and what I believe in. But I'm not going to be a puppet that you tell me, this is what you should do. And even beyond the world, the realm of sports, you can see this with all of the big cable networks where you basically have people, conglomerates that are telling you, this is what we're going to hit on today. This is going to be the theme. This is what you're going to talk about. They're telling you what should come out of your mouth. And I've always told anyone that's ever asked me to do anything on the radio. I remember in New Orleans, and I told the guy, I said, as long as you're not telling me what to say, we're fine.
Thank you.
I don't care if you want to talk about the third string tight end. I tell people already, I don't like talking about the third string tight end. I don't want to talk about the Mike linebacker and why. I said that's fine, but I tell people I don't like training camps. I said I think it's been other than rookies. I think you're not going to find out a whole heck of a lot from training camp.
You're not.
Desperate. You've been around it long enough to know one thing. What happens in training camp? This is what you're going to hear. This guy showed up in the best shape of his life. This team has been hit. This wide receiver is catching every ball in practice. So then, why fans are disillusioned? Because you hear all of this stuff that's being regurgitated by these beat writers and these reporters. And then opening day hits, and you get blown out, and you be like, what happened? And you feel like you've been lied to. You told me that this was the best shape this team has ever been in. You told me this team was focused. You told me this team was turning the corner. And then the reality sets in. This is like the whole intermission routine. This is not a list. It's not a telegram. It's just a plain old cracker. That's what it comes out into a nutshell, why you have to be true to yourself. And if you have an opinion, even if you think people don't agree with it, say it, because you'll have more respect like that.
You know what?
And I'll tell you one more thing. I don't know if you know this. When I first time on the radio in New Orleans, they used to have blogs. And this guy had live blogs, and the guy was showing me stuff that was being said against the three of us, some positive, some negative. And I told him, I don't want to know positive or negative. You know why? Because once you start reading what someone thinks of you or says, then you start to change who and what you say.
Yep.
So it doesn't make a difference whether you don't agree with what I have to say. It'd be nice. Everyone wants somebody to agree on their take, but the point is, you have to be true to yourself. Don't do things based upon what somebody else says.
Mark's word joining Snowman's spoken word, and he just hit a point, and I want to wrap it up with this. Stay true to you. Stay true to what's in your heart. That's why Alvin Washington and I, when we formed this franchise, when we started as ISNet in 1996, our goal was to bring coverage to the amateur level sports, the high schools and the small colleges. It's something we remain true to this day. Now, have we covered a couple of pro sports? Sure we have. But it's not to the level of the NFL and the NBA, and that's fine because we're staying true to what got us here 19 years later. Last month, we celebrated our 19th year working together, and Alvin's been my best friend for that long as well. We've had great people like Josh Lopez come in, Ron Murchison as well, Mark Clark, who rode shotgun with me this morning, all the folks that appear on our shows, that come listen to our broadcast, we thank you. And that is what I want to close with. Stay true to you, okay? Screw what the haters say. Screw what the outsiders say. I did an interview after the Marist Miracles 2 years ago. I did an interview online, and someone asked me, and the guy asked me, how do you think that others feel when you're doing this and they're making fun of you? I said, there's only one side that they are looking at, and that's outside. Keep the haters outside. Stay true to what's in your heart. Stay true to you. It'll be a lot better. It'll be a lot nicer. A lot of stress will come off your back, too, and that's something that I've had to learn over the years. But, folks, do me a favor. Do the same thing that Josh Lopez, Mark Clark, Alvin Washington, myself, Maya Akai, Shauna Holscher, and a few others do. And I say few because this world is so cynical and has become so cynical that if they hear a different opinion than theirs, they'll evaluate it, and then they'll buy into it and not stay true to themselves. That's my word this morning. Stay true to you. Stay true to who you are. Stay true to what is in your heart. Because when you stay true to what's in your heart, then you have the advantage over everyone that tries to bring you down. With that in mind,
that's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Oh, man. Wasn't that great, kid?
Mr. Clark, thank you very much. I would love for you to ride shotgun with me again soon, my friend.
Anytime, small man, anytime.
Mark Clark joined me this morning. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Ron. Thanks to the folks at Sowers Ford and LaporteCountyLife.com. You've been listening to Snowman in the Morning on this Wednesday. I remind you all, stay true to you, stay true to what's in your heart. Have a great day. God bless, and remember to make your next move your best move. So long, everybody.